how do you go about making your tier list and stuff? Oh, okay, yeah, I can talk about my process a little bit, sure, and then maybe this is like a nice clip or highlight for the VOD channel. When I'm making a tier list, a lot of times I'm focusing on two or three things, right? Which I try and explain in the video, but a lot of times it's a combination of experiences, stats, and then general flexibility. Because whenever I'm making a tier list and I'm talking about certain items, I don't want to just tell people, this is a broken win condition, just do this, because like that's not how TFT works typically. You want to have some sort of flexibility, because like if you take an item and you're like, I'm just gonna play X unit, then if other people contest you, then you're in a bad spot. So a lot of times when I rank stuff, it's like I usually generally say like, hey, if this item's good on anything, then a lot of times it's gonna be something that more easily applies to your board, right? So for example, let's say like, you know, there's an item like Mana Zane. Mana Zane is an Ornn artifact that's really broken. When I do an Ornn artifact tier list, it's definitely going to be S tier, because not only is it extremely good that it has win conditions, it doesn't matter what you're playing. If you're playing an AD unit, if you're playing an AP unit, there's so many units that love to have Mana Zane that it's widely applicable on all of those units. And we can actually like, I can show you a little bit of it, like in terms of stats and stuff, right? Like if we go on item stats, let me just pull it up a little bit here. 1 second. Boop. All right, perfect. Right, if you look at item stats, right, so let's say we took artifacts for example, right? Artifacts, if you average them by placement, you'll see like stuff like Mana Zane really good. But if you look at the holders of Mana Zane, there's a lot of holders where this number is minus, which means it's a good item on those units, right? But if you look at it, it's absurdly good, right? Like you put on a Braum just casts really well with it. Jarvan casts a bunch. Zyra, this is probably Crystal Gambit cash out, by the way, so don't take it too much to heart. And you got Malphite. I don't know what Malphite is. This seems like some bullshit, right? But you also have units like Kaisa that's really good on Karma, right? She's not really good on the patch, but like with Mana Zane, she surely is. There'll probably be a video one day about Karma with Mana Zane on this channel. I definitely played it in the past. Yuumi, it's insanely good on. That's like a win condition. Gwen, Lee Sin, Smolder, right? Your options are bountiful and plentiful. So like you can easily make use of this item, which makes it to me like an S tier item is really good. Now obviously there are some artifacts that are really good, but you'll see that they have a very low play rate, or they're like very awkward. Like Blinding Jewel, to me Blinding Jewel is an S tier. It might not even be A tier, because if you look at the holders of Blinding Jewel, right, it's like okay on these units, which is not like that good. It's like okay, right? Gwen, I think it's like some bullshit. Like I don't think it's that crazy on her. I think it's some interaction with a particular fruit or something maybe. But like for the most part, it's like all right on these, but if you look, it's not even like that negative. It's not like that crazy. It's like a pretty average item is the thing, right? So even though it has like a good average placement, it's not like game winning, and it's also not particularly amazing on a lot of units, right? That's like goes into it as well, right? There's other things that's like, you know, obviously like I use my own experiences, and I also try and use like, you know, logic with some of it as well. So like I did a Radiant item tier list today, or I'm gonna upload it later. But basically with Radiant Protector's Vow, right, this is an item that, you know, the stats say that it's pretty shit, right? If I go by placement, it's one of the worst of the Radiant items, so it's pretty obvious that it's a bad item. But then additionally, its effect is like the main reason you make a Protector's Vow is because you want to get mana on your units to cast. The mana difference on Radiance Protector's Vow isn't really any different. Like I'm pretty sure it's like only like 5 or 10 mana difference between the two items. So it doesn't really do any, it doesn't do like a Radiant version of the item that it originally meant to do. So because of that, I evaluate this item as being really shit. Even if it didn't have bad stats, it's like a lot of times you're better off just making a Protector's Vow and using your Radiant item on something else, because you don't get much of a benefit from that. And then lastly, like, you know, what I like to do, I think a lot of people, you might see me as like I'm a TFT content creator, whatever, and like I try not to ever rip off anybody. There's a lot of channels that I just purposely don't consume their content to make sure that I'm always making my own ideas and my own perspectives. But what I like to do is after I make a tier list, I love to see like what other people say. So like, you know, what I'll do is after I make my tier list, I'll go to like something like TFT Academy, which, you know, everybody uses TFT Academy. Great website. Love the guys, you know, great job to them, right? Like I know I'm kind of like low-key a competitor because I make guide style content and tier lists, but I love to see what they have to say afterwards, because like, you know, it's obviously going to be different than me. but a lot of the key points are going to be the same, right? Like blue buff, Shojin, right? I said Void Staff was a little bit better, so I really liked Void Staff. Then there's stuff like, you know, Gargoyle, Radiant Nashers, I say, like, you know, Nashers is kind of shit, but Radiant Nashers gives a lot of stats, so it's pretty good, right? A lot of them kind of overlap. Some of them are, like, out of place. Like, a lot of these I put into B tier because, like, I treat them more as, like, you know, situational. Like, they're good in situations, right? Same with, like, these. I rank them up a little bit higher. But, like, Protector's Vow, Edge of Night, like, a lot of the common ones are at the bottom. A lot of the common ones are at the top. And then I try and, like, you know, evaluate, like, what did I say? Was I wrong? What's different between what they say and what I say? And I like to, like, do that kind of like as an exercise for myself. And that's kind of like what I do after the fact of making the video. Not to influence the video itself, but more as a learning experience for me, so that if I have to correct myself in a later video or respond to comments or do that type of stuff, I have, like, a decent understanding of what I did wrong or what I did right. But for the most part, what I like to see is that usually, for the most part, mine overlaps what theirs is. And I think that a lot of times, like, you know, if I look at this one or if I look at another person's tier list, I know Meta TFT has some that are made by Spencer, who's another challenger player. Robin Songs has his own website where he ranks some stuff sometimes. Right? Like, there's lots of other sources. I love to, like, peruse them after the fact and just see. But, like, I think some of them are also depending on, like, patches, right? Like, I don't think Radiant Dragonclaw is A tier. I think Radiant Dragonclaw is A tier because everybody's spamming Yumi, right? I think that maybe has something to play with this tier list. I know when they do this live on stream, there's a lot of times they have explanations like that based on the current patch, because they update it, like, daily, right? Like, this was updated a day ago. My tier lists are more for, like, the test of time. I usually say, like, hey, you know, on one patch this, one patch that. Whenever it's situational, like patch dependent, usually that ends up in B tier to me. That's why my B tier always looks funny and massive and full of stuff. But that's, like, the thought process that goes with it. But a lot of it comes from, like, first-hand experience with certain items as well, especially Radiant ones. I talk a lot about, like, the stats upgrades, because that's a huge part of the power budget of when you're making your items. But that's the work that goes into a tier list, right? But a lot of it is just knowing this. Like, I kind of know this from just playing the game, right? As the set goes on, I'm looking at stats pretty much every single game, every single day. So just to see, like, what improvements I can make. So, like, I have roughly a barometer in my head of what the good items are, what the bad items are, so that I just know what to take. And obviously, like, which ones are broken. Like, Radiant Archangels, you know, obviously it's like a Yumi Giga item, Rise Giga item, right? Your main AP lines, Kog'Maw Giga item, right? Stuff like that. And so hopefully that answers your question, you know what I mean? Obviously the process is different for a lot of different videos. This is me talking about, like, how I make, like, a tier list, right? If I'm making, like, a guide, I spend a lot more time, like, you know, camping out different streams. Like, you know, if I have a guide that I'm working on, I'll make sure to, like, bookmark or favorite games played by different players of the comp. Like, I'll kind of peruse. I'll open up, like, 5 or 6 streams. I'll see if there's somebody in a lobby that has a stream open that's playing the comp that I'm making a video on, and then I'll see if it coincides with my notes. If it's different, I'll make new notes, and I'll check it out, right? Like, I'm in the process of doing that for Jin right now, because there's a lot of players that are like, you know, like, Jin, is it artistic KO or is it sacred sword? And it's like, do you build IE on Jin? It's like, the stats say not to build IE, but some people say to build IE, and it's like, I don't know, right? But it's like, you know, I watched a video yesterday with Title played Sacred Sword Jin, and he didn't make IE. I think Jin crits without his fucking... I don't think Jin has an ult that crits. I think his auto attacks crit naturally without IE. That's why you never want to build IE on him, because it's just a wasted item. You'd rather just build, like, other crit glove items or some shit. Like, I don't know. It's so fucking confusing, because, like, sometimes he crits, sometimes he doesn't. It's like, I don't know why he's not critting, but it's like stuff like that. It's like I have to iron it all out so that when I make those videos, it's actually informative and useful. But then, you know, there's always going to be somebody that's like, I saw this on Reddit and this is how it should be played. And it's like, no, you're probably wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I spend enough time that I'm pretty confident in what I say. You know, like that. Not like ego, but just when I'm doing research, you know, like doing, like, spending the hours to make it. And a lot of times it's like, you know, multi-boxed or however you call it, right? Like, while I'm working on the Jin video, I'm also working on the Mentor Rise video. And it's whichever one I feel more comfortable with is the one that's going to come out first. You know what I mean? So it's like stuff like that as the due diligence process, right? It happens with all of those. But no, it never comes from me, like, ripping off somebody else. It's like I sometimes look at it afterwards, but you'll notice that everything I put out, usually it's unique and different than the other people's, the items, the other stuff, because I spend a lot of time curating it, and it's not like, you know, it's with my own spin of, like, trying to be consistent and useful, so to speak.